Hello everyone and welcome to the Young and the Restless channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Friday, April 3rd, 2026 unfolds in Genoa City with a quiet tension humming beneath every encounter, as if the entire town is holding its breath for something inevitable. At Crimson Lights, Noah Newman unexpectedly crosses paths with Audra Charles, and the air between them instantly thickens with the weight of everything left unsaid. Audra, trying to steady herself, acknowledges the awkwardness that lingers after she confessed the depth of her feelings, her voice carrying both regret and fragile hope that they can somehow move forward. As Noah joins her, there's a quiet admiration in her gaze when she notes how firmly he is standing by his family, as if searching for reassurance that the man she once knew is still there. The conversation gently drifts towards Sienna, and Noah explains plans to recreate the Shadow Room in Genoa City, a project that seems to mirror both ambition and nostalgia. Soon, their shared memories of London surface, wrapping them in a bittersweet haze. And while Noah admits those moments still linger in his mind, he cannot ignore how dark everything eventually became. Yet, even in that darkness, he allows himself to remember flashes of warmth, moments that once felt like forever. And as Audra quietly wonders how their lives might have changed if they hadn't lost their baby, she instinctively reaches for his hand, as if trying to reclaim something time stole away. But the fragile moment shatters the instant Sienna arrives, and Noah's immediate reaction, leaping to his feet and kissing her, cuts through the air like a blade, leaving Audra frozen in discomfort as she watches them walk away, abandoned with nothing but his half-eaten muffin and the echo of what might have been. The quiet sting of that moment doesn't linger in silence for long, as Holden soon joins Audra, his presence sharp and probing as he needles her about still wanting Noah instead of Kyle. There's an undercurrent of concern in his voice when he mentions Sienna, but Audra brushes it aside with cool confidence, dismissing her as no real threat. Holden, however, isn't convinced, warning her that chasing a man who's entangled with someone holding dangerous secrets could end badly, his words hanging ominously in the air. Across town at the Newman Ranch, Victor Newman initially greets Claire Newman with warmth, but the mood quickly shifts as she challenges him about interfering in Jack's marriage. Victor deflects at first, insisting his actions were purely about reclaiming his company. Yet Claire senses something deeper, something more personal driving him. Reluctantly, Victor admits as much, reflecting on his past as an orphan and the hardness it forced him to develop, a survival instinct that never truly left him. When she presses him about his plans for Chancellor, he reveals only that it's the key to regaining Newman, refusing to elaborate but hinting that Victoria Newman will stand beside him in the fight. Then, almost as an invitation into his world, Victor offers Claire a place at his side, suggesting she join them so he can teach her how things are done. But the weight of that offer carries a cost Claire isn't sure she's willing to pay. Meanwhile, at Society, Nicky Newman finds a flicker of amusement as Jack Abbott admits he's attempting, perhaps for the first time, to follow Billy's advice and give Diane some space. Nicky, in contrast, has created her own distance from Victor, even going so far as to have her daughter retrieve belongings from the ranch, a move that feels less temporary with every passing day. Though she confesses she misses the ranch and even Victor himself, her pride remains unshaken, insisting that if reconciliation is ever to happen, he must be the one to take the first step. Jack, however, doubts that day will come anytime soon, and when the conversation turns toward the yacht, he hesitates, reluctant to revisit the chaos. Nikki, piecing things together, reveals she witnessed Diane arguing with Patty and deduced that Patty Williams was the mystery woman aboard the boat. Jack admits his regrets, but his anger burns fiercely as he condemns Victor for pushing things beyond all acceptable limits, calling his actions unconscionable. Determined, he seeks Nikki's help in teaching Victor a lesson, though she hesitates, wary of escalating the situation further. Jack, however, believes there is no other way, that the only way to make Victor back down is to force him, and though he has yet to devise a plan, his promise lingers with quiet intensity. When it comes, Victor won't see it coming. Elsewhere, tensions ignite at the club bar as Kyle Abbott confronts Victoria over her father's actions, disbelief and frustration spilling over as he questions whether she truly doubts Victor's involvement with Patty. Victoria doesn't deny that her father is capable of extreme measures, but she draws a line, insisting that whatever happened ultimately falls on Jack's shoulders. Kyle pushes back, arguing that his father was drugged, his words laced with urgency. Yet even as Victoria acknowledges the strength of his argument, she continues to stand by her father. The tension escalates further when Diane Jenkins storms in, unleashing her fury over Victor's actions and demanding to know when Annie Newman will finally condemn him. Victoria refuses to engage, dismissing Diane's outrage and coldly suggesting that if she is searching for someone to blame for her failing marriage, she should look closer to home. Left alone with Kyle, Diane's composure falters as doubt creeps in, her voice trembling with uncertainty as she admits she is no longer convinced Jack was entirely out of his mind when he was with Patty. Even if he had been drugged, the fact that he was sober when they found him leaves her questioning everything, unraveling the trust she once held on to so tightly. Back at the ranch, Victoria arrives to gather her mother's belongings, only to be met with Victor's simmering anger as he gruffly declares Nikki is lucky he didn't throw her things out onto the lawn. Victoria urges him to reach out, to bridge the growing distance between them. But Victor refuses, retreating into his pride as he walks away. In the aftermath, Claire confides in her mother, revealing Victor's offer to bring her into the fold and teach her his ways. Though she admits she loves him, there is a quiet resolve in her voice as she confesses she cannot embrace his methods, unwilling to be part of a world where people get hurt in the pursuit of power. As the evening settles once more over crimson lights, Noah and Sienna share desserts, their conversation light on the surface, but edged with curiosity as they discuss Audra's reappearance. From across the room, Audra watches them, her expression unreadable, caught between longing and something far more dangerous. Sienna, sensing the unspoken history, tells Noah he'll have to open up about his past with Audra, and in return, she promises to reveal her own, setting the stage for truths that could change everything. Out on the patio, beneath the quiet cover of night, Holden meets with Kane Ashby, and the tone shifts into something far more ominous as Kane reveals he has a job for him, one that won't be clean. His words are deliberate, heavy with implication as he instructs Holden to make a move against Victor, setting into motion a plan that could ripple through every corner of Genoa City. And as the tension builds, the night reaches a quiet but devastating crescendo back at the club, where Kyle reassures Diane that Jack would never risk what they have, clinging to a belief that feels increasingly fragile. Diane, however, sees things differently now, her certainty shattered as she admits that everything she thought she knew has been thrown into doubt, and that Jack may not be as blameless as she once believed. In that fragile, unraveling moment, Kyle steps away to take a call, and as if drawn by fate itself, Jack walks in, his eyes locking with Diane's across the room. The world seems to still around them, the weight of betrayal, doubt, and unspoken truths crashing into that single glance, leaving everything hanging in a fragile, uncertain balance as the story edges toward its next inevitable storm. The charged silence between Jack Abbott and Diane Jenkins lingers like a storm that refuses to break, their eyes locked across the room as if everything they once shared now hangs by a thread. In that suspended moment, the noise of the club seems to fade into nothing, leaving only the weight of doubt pressing in from all sides. Diane's expression hardens despite the hurt flickering beneath the surface, her mind racing with unanswered questions that refuse to settle into anything resembling peace. Jack, standing still yet visibly shaken, carries the burden of knowing that whatever words come next may either mend what's fractured or shatter it beyond repair. There is no easy explanation waiting to be offered, no simple truth that can undo what has already been set into motion. And as the seconds stretch into something unbearable, the space between them feels wider than ever, filled with suspicion, regret, and the quiet realization that love alone may not be enough to bridge it. Not far away, Kyle Abbott remains caught in the middle of a storm he cannot control, torn between loyalty to his father and the growing fear that his mother may be right to question everything. The conviction in his voice begins to falter as Diane's doubts echo in his mind, forcing him to confront possibilities he tried desperately to ignore. He wants to believe in Jack without hesitation, to hold on to the image of a man who would never risk his family for anything. Yet the cracks are impossible to overlook now. Each new detail feels like another piece of a puzzle that refuses to fit together cleanly, leaving behind an unsettling sense that the truth is far more complicated than anyone wants to admit. And in that uncertainty, Kyle finds himself standing on unstable ground, unsure of where his faith should lie, or how much more it can endure before it finally gives way. Across town, the night deepens around crimson lights, where Audra Charles sits alone, her gaze drifting again and again toward Noah Newman and Sienna as they laugh softly over dessert. From a distance, it looks effortless, almost perfect, the kind of connection that feels untouched by the complications of the past. But Audra knows better. She feels the weight of her own history with Noah pressing against her chest, every shared memory refusing to stay buried no matter how hard she tries to move forward. There's something almost haunting in the way she watches them, caught between longing for what once was and calculating what could still be reclaimed. When Sienna leans closer, her curiosity unmistakable as she hints at wanting to uncover Noah's past, the moment carries a quiet danger, as though pulling on that thread could unravel far more than either of them expects. And though Audra remains still, her mind is anything but, already circling possibilities that could shift the balance in her favor. On the dimly lit patio, Holden absorbs Kane Ashby's words with a measured silence, fully aware that the task being placed in his hands is not one to be taken lightly. Kane's tone leaves no room for misinterpretation. This isn't just another move in a game of strategy, it's something far more dangerous, something that could ignite consequences no one can fully predict. The directive to make a move against Victor Newman hangs heavy in the air, carrying with it the promise of chaos and the risk of stepping into a battle that has already consumed so many. Holden doesn't respond immediately, but the tension in his posture suggests a mind already turning, already weighing the cost against the potential reward. Because in a town like Genoa City, aligning yourself against Victor Newman is never a simple decision. It's a declaration of war. And as the night closes in around them, the sense that something irreversible has just been set into motion becomes impossible to ignore. Back at the ranch, Claire Newman finds herself standing at a crossroads that feels as emotional as it is moral. Her thoughts circling Victor's offer like a question she cannot quite answer. She wants to believe there's a version of him she can stand beside without hesitation, a path where loyalty doesn't come at the expense of her own principles. Yet the stories she is hearing, the actions she is witnessing, all point to a reality where power is often pursued without regard for the damage left behind. In confiding in Victoria Newman, Claire reveals a vulnerability that contrasts sharply with the hardened world Victor inhabits, admitting that while she loves him, she cannot become part of something that causes harm to others. It's a quiet but powerful line she draws, one that may ultimately define her place within the Newman legacy. And as Victoria listens, caught between understanding her daughter's hesitation and standing by her father, the generational divide becomes painfully clear. As the night stretches toward its inevitable end, every corner of Genoa City seems to pulse with unresolved tension, each storyline threading toward a collision that feels closer with every passing moment. Jack and Diane remain suspended in uncertainty, their future clouded by doubt and unspoken truths that refuse to be ignored. Kyle stands on the edge of belief and disillusionment, struggling to reconcile the father he knows with the possibility of a darker reality. Audra watches, waits, and quietly calculates, her heart and ambition pulling her in directions that could change everything. And in the shadows, plans are being set into motion, moves against Victor that promise to shake the very foundation of his empire. Nothing is settled, nothing is safe, and as the final moments of the night fade into silence, one truth becomes impossible to deny. The next chapter won't just test loyalties, it will redefine them. As dawn threatens to break over Genoa City, the emotional aftershocks of the night refuse to settle, instead tightening their grip on every life caught in the storm. At the club, the fragile distance between Jack Abbott and Diane Jenkins finally begins to close, but not with comfort, rather with a tension so sharp it feels almost suffocating. When they step closer, it's not love that leads them, but the urgent need for answers, for something solid to hold on to in a moment where everything feels like it's slipping away. Diane's voice, though controlled, carries the tremor of betrayal as she demands clarity, not just about what happened, but about who Jack truly is beneath all the layers she thought she understood. Jack, in turn, struggles to meet her gaze with the same certainty he once had, knowing that explanations alone may not be enough to rebuild what's been fractured. Every word exchanged feels heavy, deliberate, as if each sentence could tip the balance between reconciliation and collapse. And even as they stand face to face, closer than they've been all night, an invisible wall remains between them, built from doubt, fear, and the haunting possibility that some truths cannot be undone. Just outside that moment, Kyle Abbott lingers in the periphery, caught in a painful limbo where loyalty and reality refuse to align. He watches the strained interaction between his parents with a growing sense of helplessness, realizing that this is no longer something he can fix or mediate. The certainty he once clung to, that his father would never jeopardize their family, now feels like a fragile illusion, cracking under the weight of unanswered questions. Each passing second forces Kyle to confront a deeper, more uncomfortable truth, that sometimes the people we trust most are capable of choices we cannot defend. And as that realization settles in, it reshapes not only how he sees his father, but how he understands the very foundation of his family. In that quiet, painful awakening, Kyle is no longer just a son trying to protect what remains. He's someone being forced to redefine what trust even means. Meanwhile, at Crimson Lights, the warmth of the early morning light does little to soften the emotional tension still lingering from the night before. Audra Charles remains seated long after the crowd has thinned, her thoughts tangled in a web of memory, desire, and quiet determination. Across the room, the laughter shared between Noah Newman and Sienna continues to echo in her mind, replaying in fragments that refuse to fade. There is a growing intensity behind her stillness now, a sense that she is no longer simply reflecting on what was lost, but beginning to consider what might still be within reach. The past she shares with Noah is no longer just a memory. It's a possibility waiting to be reignited, no matter how complicated or risky that path may be. And as she finally rises from her seat, there's a quiet resolve in her movements, as if she has already begun to set something into motion that the others have yet to see coming. On the other side of town, the tension surrounding Victor Newman continues to build, like a gathering storm that refuses to break. Within the walls of the ranch, his presence looms large, even in absence, his decisions casting long shadows over everyone connected to him. Victoria Newman wrestles with the familiar conflict of defending her father while recognizing the consequences of his actions, a balance that grows harder to maintain with each passing moment. And for Claire Newman, the choice before her feels heavier than ever, her heart pulling her toward family while her conscience urges her to step back. Victor's offer still lingers, tempting in its promise of belonging and power, yet burdened by the cost it demands. Claire's hesitation is not weakness, but clarity, a recognition that stepping into his world means accepting a version of herself she may not be ready to become. And as the silence stretches between father, daughter, and granddaughter, it becomes clear that this is not just a moment of decision, but the beginning of a divide that could reshape the Newman legacy. Out in the shadows, far from the warmth of family and the illusion of normalcy, Holden begins to process the weight of Kane Ashby's command, the implications of his task settling in with quiet intensity. A move against Victor is not just a strategic play, it's a spark that could ignite something far larger, something uncontrollable. Holden understands the risks, the inevitability of consequences that will ripple far beyond his own actions. Yet, there is also an undeniable pull toward the opportunity itself. In a world where power defines survival, aligning against Victor could either destroy him or elevate him in ways he's never imagined. The decision doesn't come easily, but it begins to take shape nonetheless, forming in the quiet spaces between doubt and ambition. And as he disappears into the early hours of the morning, there's a growing sense that whatever choice he makes will not just impact him, it will alter the balance of power across all of Genoa City. By the time the first light of day fully settles over the city, nothing feels resolved, only intensified, as if every relationship, every secret, and every ambition has been pushed one step closer to the edge. Jack and Diane stand on uncertain ground, their future hanging in delicate balance. Kyle faces a truth he never wanted to see, forced to question everything he believed about his family. Audra moves forward with quiet determination, her next steps guided by both heart and strategy. Claire stands at a moral crossroads, unwilling to lose herself in the pursuit of power. And in the background, forces begin to align against Victor,